Now, calling all tech entrepreneurs, the good news and the bad news. Well, when it comes to business, still pretty much on your own in difficult economic times. The good news is that there are a few more people around to help you. Now, when President Barack Obama visited the Nairobi Tech Hub in 2015, there were 200 companies helping the start-up businesses there. Now, there is double that number, according to a report by an outfit called Village Capital. But is this reason to celebrate? Well, I have one of the authors of that report on the line, Brenda Wangari, joining me via Skype, as well as Simunza Muyangana, of the co-founder of BongoHive in Zambia, Lusaka to be precise. To start off with you, Brenda, do you think this report here shows that there's enough support for these tech companies that the continent is pinning its hopes on for the future?
Thank you. So as of 2015, when President Obama visited the iHub, there were around 200 tech hubs in the whole of Africa. So currently, we are looking at around 500. And when we ran our program last year, we worked with 15 ecosystem builders, and we exposed them to the tech ecosystem in Lagos, in Nairobi, and Cape Town. And during this time, they got to interact with over 1,000 stakeholders in the tech ecosystem, learn from them and also from each other. So during that whole program, there are a few learnings that we drew, and those are what we're sharing in the report. And one of them is we believe that there are enough tech hubs and we don't need to build any more, but rather we should invest more in the ones that exist. And even for the ones that exist, they should look more towards collaboration. And a good example of this is the Southern Africa Venture Partnership, which is a collaboration of tech hubs in Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi, which Simunza is part of, and he will tell you more about that.
Okay, just to go for a word on the ground now to Lusaka in Zambia, and Simunza Muyangana, the co-founder of BongoHive. You're one of these tech startup hubs. Do you think that these important startups are getting enough support, do you think, from the world of finance and grants?
So could you kindly repeat the question? There was a
do you think, from your experience on the ground, that tech startups are getting enough financial support and help to grow?
Oh yes, so the attention that is required to help tech startups grow requires, first of all, there's the question of if the financing is there, are we finding the right entrepreneurs to build the tech startups that solve these problems? But then, in addition to that, on the other hand, is that do the people who are starting businesses have the correct education or understand the correct systems that will help them actually build the problems that address the situations? So yes, certainly the financing seems to continues to hover around, but it's looking for companies that are at certain stages that at later stage companies. So tech hubs are currently playing the full role of supporting early stage companies to get to the place where they can access the financing.
Brenda, if I go back to you, according to this report of yours, something like 300 million has been poured into startups across the continent. It sounds like a lot of money to most people, including me, but surely isn't this like a drop in the ocean?
So this 300 million is in terms of grants, but when we talk about investments, we've had over 1 billion over the past year. So while this is obviously very interesting, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of the early stage deal flow, which is where the hubs play a big role.
Now, one thing I've got to ask you, in your home country, I mean, I've interviewed your minister before in charge of tech many years ago in Nairobi, and he was saying that he thought Nairobi was going to become one of the world capitals of software, computers, high-tech and startups. How far true was that prediction?
So while this is true, because Nairobi, when we look at the startup funding going into Africa, it's mostly to three countries. That's Nairobi, mostly to three cities. That's Nairobi, Lagos, and Cape Town. So there is a lot of things that are happening, and we also showcase some of the best case practices are happening around the country, where around the continent, sorry, where there's still a lot of work that needs to be done.
Okay, go back to Zambia now for a word there. Your government, I mean, Kenya's tried to be very progressive, but the Zambian government, what have they done as well to try and help build the industry that you're in?
Over the last couple of years, government has continued to position the country with regards to ease of doing business, and that has helped people with regards to ease of registration, ease of financing, people being able to access financing, and laws that support. There's still a lot of work with regards to policy that directly addresses startups, and the unique case of startups as high growth companies, and companies that are going to access financing that very often might come from outside the country, and making sure that the taxation laws match in with the companies that are within the growth stage there. So these are conversations that we, as entrepreneur support organizations, continue to engage government on.
And I'm going to ask you both this question before we wrap up, starting with Lusaka, Zambia. We've spoken a lot about what the organizations and the governments are doing, but what's not being done for these new companies? Starting with Zambia.
All right. So I think a lot more can be done within the ecosystem to make sure that people who have ideas that solve grand challenges, and especially ideas that are scalable across the region of Africa, the vast region of Africa, and solve challenges that the masses have, will get the right attention, the right financing, and the right support with regards to mentorship from business leaders around the place. Governments recognize that there's an opportunity to create jobs through the support of such startups, but we know that unlike SMEs, this is a longer path, and careful attention needs to be given towards these companies to make sure that they get it right, so that they can scale properly and also access them. So maybe opportunities around regional work, for example, companies that are getting into other countries to ease access into.
I think we've lost him there, but Brenda, I'm going to ask you that. I'm afraid we've lost contact with Lusaka there. I'm going to ask you the question though. We've talked a lot in this report about what is happening. What isn't happening in Kenya, you think, for your startups that should be?
So one of the things we saw while doing research for this report was a lot of entrepreneur support organizations run broad programs and not really sector specific. And so with this, they're not able to attract the best and the highest quality mentors, especially in a specific field. So one of the things we recommend in the report is for these organizations to run sector-specific programs. So an example would be an organization will do something like we're running a tech program for tech startups. That's not really, like tech is broader. So for people who are more specific and they're like, we're running a program in the healthcare industry, or we're running something in agriculture, find it much easier to collaborate with people like the government and also funders. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. That was Brenda Wangari, a Program Associate at Village Capital and co-author of the report, as well as Simunza Muyangana, the co-founder of BongoHive in Lusaka, Zambia.